today, this episode is going to be about Pisces Lagna, and we're talking specifically about the first lord, Jupiter, which is also the 10th lord. And that says a lot about what Jupiter means to Pisces. To give a little bit of a backdrop on that, we're just going to take a little peek at a diagram that I've created for us. Now we can see here that this is Pisces' house lords. First lord being Jupiter, because the first house is Pisces. We see that Jupiter rules the first house, and Jupiter, the first lord, shares its rulership with the 10th house, because Sagittarius is the 10th house from Pisces. Now the first thing we want to do when we're talking about the, specifically in this series, I'd like to bring out the Pisces Lagna from Brihat Parashara Horashastra. This is what Parashara has given to talk about how the planetary lords, the house lords, relate to Pisces. Now you're going to see this in every video. We don't need to go through the whole thing, but essentially what we hear about Jupiter, the only thing we hear about Jupiter, is that Mars and Jupiter produce yoga. The reason for this is because Jupiter is not only the first lord, but more importantly, for the sake of the capacity for Jupiter to express yoga, Jupiter is the 10th lord for Pisces. Now the 10th house is well known to be the most active of the house lords. So anything relating to Jupiter is going to have it'll ground the Pisces' constant activity in the world. So the 10th lord is always, for every chart, the most active of the angular lords. The angular houses and lords are active houses, and they bring us into activity in the world. The trines are more about like our spirit and what gives us inspiration. The quadrant lords, the cardinal angle house lords, are what bring us action in the world. Ryan makes a big point about how the yogas are really the crown jewel of the chart, but these yogas will only express under the proper circumstances. We can't just look at a chart and say, oh, you have the 10th lord Jupiter combined with, say, the 9th lord Mars. This must be a yoga. We can't necessarily assume that. Look to Ryan Kirksack's channel for more about why that is or why that might be. In this series, we're going to talk about why a yoga might or might not work, including the position of Jupiter, whether it's close to its exaltation point, whether it has Digbala close to the first house, and whether it is combined with benefics or friends of Jupiter, the dignity of Jupiter, etc. So, the first lord in any chart is generally considered to be auspicious. So, Jupiter for a Pisces Lagna it's part of the nature of the self. So even if Jupiter is not well placed, the activities that Jupiter draws to a Pisces are critical to its activity in the world and to itself. Wherever Jupiter is, the Pisces will tend to identify and expand its path, its life path, through that placement, through the placement of Jupiter. And it'll involve Pisces' constant activity in the world, because the first lord, Jupiter, is also the 10th lord. What we're dealing with here is that Pisces, being ruled by Jupiter, has a very important anchor in the 5th house. Now, why do you think that is? The reason is because Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, and Cancer is Pisces' 5th house. This is one of those interesting grab bag situations, meaning that for a Pisces has to deal with the fact that Jupiter is exalted as it gets closer to the 5th house. This is good because if it's close to Cancer, we're going to talk about the benefits that can have. But it's frustrating because the 5th house is very far away from the 1st house. Now, any of us yogis who are interested in yoga and what it's all about will probably know that you can't have a strong yoga if the planet is far away from its exaltation point. That's Cancer. And also, the yoga will not express itself fully if the planet has low Digbala. Digbala means directional strength. Of course, Vedic people will understand what this is all about. Jupiter gains strength, directional strength, when it is in the east side of the chart, and that is closer to Pisces. So Jupiter, in one way, is stronger when it's close to the first house. Jupiter, in another way, is stronger when it's close to Cancer. And Cancer's a whole, 120 degrees away from Pisces. Which is better? It's hard to say. In fact, some people, my interpretation is that Pisces, one of the best places for Jupiter, for a Pisces, is Aries. Even Gemini can be okay, because Gemini, Mars is a good friend, usually, to Jupiter. And Gemini's lord, Mercury, is an okay place for it too. Mercury is neutral to Jupiter, so it doesn't cause much damage. And in Gemini, it's very close to Cancer, which is the exaltation point. So there's a bit of a frustrating kind of thing going on there, What the deal is that Jupiter, the nature of Jupiter is self-illuminating qualities. What do you have to do? What do you have to be involved in order to have self-illuminating qualities? You want to think about what I like to call the self in all. Because the self in one is the self in all. Human consciousness has a framework, a metaphysical constitution, which has the same elements, the same nature, the same laws in every human being. Jupiter does well. It's exalted in Cancer. What exactly does that mean? Well, this means that the Pisces Lagna, any Pisces, does very good when Jupiter is close to Cancer, for the reason that the Jupiter gains the resources. It's guided by the universe to be interested in people, especially people close to it. Cancer is the 5th house for a Pisces Lagna. So Jupiter, for any chart, does well in Cancer. Particularly for a Pisces, Cancer is the 5th house. So this goes to show that Pisces does everything in the chart does well and does better, even if Jupiter is not well placed, if it's in the 7th house or if it's in the worst place thinkable. A Pisces always does well when it is enacting its 5th house, when it is creatively expressing its own redemption. Everybody has their ways of redeeming themselves. Pisces has a psychological fascination with redemption, and whatever the Pisces Lagna learns through its job, through dealing with other people, through charity specifically. Jupiter does well when it's doing charity for others. That's the Cancer vibe. Cancer is adaptable, and it learns what's close to it, what's within reach of it. So Pisces does well when it's creatively expressing how it has reached out to others and gained self-illumination. How it is creatively... Jupiter is a very creative planet. It's kind of a karaka for the 5th house in a way. So it makes sense that that Jupiter would do well in the 5th house as the creative house, expressing the creative willpower. When Pisces learns to express its wisdom of what makes itself happy, it taps into a universal wisdom of what makes all people happy. And when they can creatively express that, that's when Pisces is in its hot seat. It's doing what it's best at. That fifth house energy is very strong for a Pisces, especially when it is talking about what makes everybody happy, useful, and ergonomical. Pisces learns very quickly what is good for people, and it knows how to express it to people. So these people can be good PR people. They can make good counselors, and especially they make great artists because their art reflects human consciousness and what enlivens and enriches human consciousness and creativity. Pisces does not do as well when it's in Capricorn, where it's debilitated. So whenever a Pisces is thinking about the way of business, Pisces is always clever. Jupiter is bound to be clever. So Jupiter in Capricorn will learn a lot about the world. They'll work a lot in the world. And a Pisces Lagna can be very clever once Jupiter gets closer to Capricorn, especially like Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, because here it's a little bit closer to the first house. What's frustrating for Pisces is that when Jupiter is close to its own Lagna, Pisces, it is good. It gains a lot here because the Pisces is learning about itself, and it's learning again about the self in one is the self in all. It learns about its own capacity to make itself happy and efficient and ergonomical through the work that it does. When it's in close to Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, it's going to be kind of pushed to do work for other people and for the world, for an enterprise, for capitalism, in order to make its own life easier. And it'll do a lot of work there because the 10th Lord is also Jupiter. The worst places for a Jupiter, for Pisces Lagna, is Sagittarius is okay. It has half its dig ball of strength there. Plus it's its own sign, it's its Mula Tricona, and it will work a lot. It's an okay place. It's kind of a good half and half going on there, although it's still very close to the debilitation point. So if you have Mars and Jupiter in the 10th house in Sagittarius for a Pisces Lagna, it's still hurt a lot. The damage is done because Jupiter is wasting its talent learning about the world rather than learning about the self in one, which is the self in all. And the closer the Jupiter is to the 7th house, the worse, because it loses the dig ball of strength. The Jupiter does not do well in Leo because the 6th is very close to the 7th. It doesn't do well in Virgo. It doesn't do well in Libra, especially. Libra and Virgo are probably some of the worst places for Jupiter. And it doesn't even do well in Scorpio, although it's the 9th house and there's some goodness there. In Leo, Virgo, and Libra, this Pisces person will be guided. They'll use their intuition, and they'll listen instead of listening to their own intuition, which is what Jupiter's good for. Instead of listening to itself, it learns what other people want. It surrenders to the will of other people, and this drowns Pisces' ability to know what's happy for itself. And Pisces Lagna does well to do through itself what it does for the world. Because Pisces is always living for things bigger than itself. The first Lord and the 10th Lord are connected, meaning that the Pisces identifies, first house, with what it does in the world and with corporations and institutions. And Pisces will do well to learn about any organization that it involves itself with. Because the 10th Lord, the Pisces does want to work and to serve. But this service that it does for something bigger than itself will be well served to come from its own talent, its own wisdom of what makes humans happy. That's why they work as good like a PR person or like a counselor at the job, this kind of thing. The more that the Jupiter goes towards the 7th house after Cancer, it's saved in Cancer. Even though the 5th is very close to the 7th, Jupiter still learns a lot about the happiness of everybody and the happiness of itself because it's pitted into the 5th house creativity, and it's bound to learn about itself, even though it's doing it for other people. Jupiter, closer to the 7th, does what it does for others, for things bigger than itself, through others, through other people's ethics. It doesn't take the time to contemplate and explore what makes it feel happy. It learns what makes others happy, and this reduces the power that Jupiter has, which is very important for Pisces because it is the 1st lord and is what gives it vitality. More than any other lagna, Jupiter gives Pisces vitality. So as a Pisces lagna, you will always be well served to serve something bigger than yourself through yourself, through what makes you happy, through what makes others happy, because the self in one, again, is the self in all. Thank you very much, folks. I'm Dustin Cormier. Stay tuned for the next video because we're going to talk about Mars as relates Mars, the 2nd and 9th lord, as relates to Pisces lagna. Thanks for watching.